All right, we're back. It's time to run through the waiver wire selections here. Heading into week 12, as Boone says, we're running out of time here. Time is getting tight for some of these fantasy players. So it's a big week on the waiver wire, sort of, kind of. Let's go position by position here, starting with quarterbacks. Boone, who are we adding this week?
I mean, it's definitely a big week on the waiver wire. It's not a great week for fantasy quarterbacks on the waiver wire. We have one really good pickup. That's Jacoby Brissett. That's the guy that I think everyone should be trying to get if you need help this week. Other than that,
definitely a sentence we all thought you'd be saying here.
Yeah, when you look at the top fantasy quarterbacks in the last 6 weeks or so, it's Joe Flacco's up there and Brissett's up there. It's really shocking stuff.
What
and it shows that we clearly can predict this stuff well in advance. We definitely knew that Joe Flacco and Jacoby Brissett were going to be fantasy stars this season. But you look at it right now, Jacoby Brissett is the top pickup. Bryce Young, if you think he can do what he did last week again, then you definitely want to go get him. I'm not so confident. But like we said earlier, the matchup with the 49ers is one that you could definitely get home against the 49ers, especially if they're going to keep up passing it with the kind of volume that they had. But the 49ers, they have all those injuries, but they are a top 10 opponent in terms of fantasy points allowed to QBs. They just allowed 452 yards and 2 touchdowns to, guess who? Jacoby Brissett. The week before that, 280 and 4 TDs to Matt Stafford. So you can definitely throw on the 49ers. Maybe Bryce Young can get there. And then after that, I honestly just put 2 more names in here to fill out a graphic because there's nobody else on the waiver wire. You could chase Davis Mills, who's going to play against the Bills. It seems like CJ Stroud's going to miss here, but you can't feel good about that. Trevor Lawrence just never seems to have great fantasy days. They're very rare for him. Tyler Shuck, he had his best outing of the season before the bye, 282 and 2 TDs. We know the volume should be there. I mean, if Bryce Young just got home against the Falcons, maybe Shuck could do it as well. Again, you're in a dire straits. You're in a tough spot if you can't get Jacoby Brissett and you need waiver wire help for quarterbacks this week. So I don't know if we want to even spend any more time on these guys. We should probably just talk about the running backs, the receivers, and the tight ends where there's a lot better players to go over.
I'll just say I'm a sick freak, and in the league that I have Joe Flacco, I might think about starting Bryce Young over Joe Flacco with no Jamar Chase. I might give it a little bit of consideration, but we know how that will end for me. It will end poorly, but that's a great matchup against that Niners defense, so we shall see. Yeah, let's get to the running backs here. This is a much more interesting crop.
Yeah, so the 4 guys that I want to highlight here, Emmanuel Wilson, who's playing the Vikings, Kenneth Gainwell, who's going to be at the Bears, Bashal Tutin, who did get a little bit dinged up in this game. We're going to have to follow that injury to make sure he's healthy. He's playing the Cardinals, and Devin Singletary at the Lions. And Wilson, we spoke about earlier in the show. Josh Jacobs is hurt. We're not sure how long that's going to keep him out. I know the team's saying they're not going to put him on IR. This isn't something that's season ending, so that's definitely good. The latest update from Matt LaFleur is that he's day-to-day and that there's a chance he could play this week. But remember what I said earlier in the show, I think they are definitely going to position it that way because they want opposing defenses to game plan for him. And yet I don't think that he is going to play in this game. I think it's going to be more like week to week, which Rob Domofsky, one of their best beat writers, is what he said. So you look at Emmanuel Wilson, when Jacobs left the game, he came in, he played the majority of the snaps. He finished his day with 49 yards and a score on 12 touches. He is the must add in all formats because I think you're going to get at least 1 start out of him, maybe a couple here. In very deep leagues, you could look at the rest of that backfield. You could consider a Chris Brooks, potential flex play if Jacobs isn't out there. Even Marshawn Lloyd, who we brought up before, he's an IR stash. Get him, throw him on IR, see if he can come back at any point this season. But those are moves for very deep leagues. The move in all leagues is go get Emmanuel Wilson for sure. Kenneth Gainwell. So we saw Jalen Warren get hurt in this game. We saw him leave. When he came back, didn't play as many snaps. So we don't know what the state is of that injury. It's an ankle issue. Sometimes you see ankle injuries 24 hours after the game. They swell up. It ends up being a bigger problem. And Kenneth Gainwell, we know he's been very productive when he's gotten opportunities, right? When you think back to week 4, had 25 touches for 134 scrimmage yards and a pair of rushing touchdowns. This week, he steps up 105 and 2 receiving touchdowns on 16 touches. So if Warren is out, if Warren is limited, Kenny Gainwell is in that RB2 conversation for fantasy, a guy that you could put in there. He's had the production before. We've seen him do it. And then if you go deeper, I mean, Caleb Johnson, just a complete stash. If anyone wants to get too cute with this and say, oh my God, Jalen Warren's out, this is opening the door for Caleb Johnson.
Ugh.
It's not. He is still third and well behind Kenny Gainwell, and not really going to give that offense what they want, which is like a dynamic, versatile back who can catch passes, who can pass protect. Caleb Johnson is not that guy. So I would only pick him up in very deep leagues. Baishal Tootin, so interesting here. I don't know your thoughts on this one, Harmon, but prior to getting hurt, he was leading that backfield, and it was still a committee. Don't get me wrong. And I don't think it was him completely taking over, but we were seeing his role grow, right? He had 15 carries to just 12 carries for Travis Etienne. We saw Tootin rack up 74 yards and a touchdown, which is not surprising at all, because when he's gotten chances this year, for the most part, he's been very productive with them. He's found the end zone before. There's no doubt that he has that game-breaking ability, that he has the nose for the end zone. And I think there's no doubt that if they put him in a larger role, he could be a really good fantasy option. The question is, he had an injury. Is he actually going to be hurt and potentially miss some time? We're going to have to pay attention to that all this week. I haven't seen the latest update on it yet here. I haven't seen if they've talked about it much this afternoon before we came on, but he can be at least a flex option while Etienne's out there. And if he ends up taking on like a 50-50 type role, now we're talking about him as an RB3 with RB2 upside. And if Travis Etienne ever got hurt, oh man, we could potentially be looking at an RB1. And then Devin Singletary, just, much further down, a guy who's in a committee backfield, but has been productive. Not somebody who's going to win your league like we're talking about with some of these other names if they get extended starts. But Devin Singletary is a guy who's been productive, 51 yards on 10 touches in week 9, 73 on 11 touches in week 10, 47 yards and 2 TDs on 17 touches this week. So he's getting it done, right? They're giving him an opportunity to produce, and he's getting it done, and he can get into your lineup as, an RB3 flex.
Baishal Tootin, definitely the most interesting guy here to me. I agree. Like Emmanuel Wilson, you can get a good start out of him. He's a good guy to go grab. He's obviously more widely available, but Tootin's really interesting because, he was kind of leading that backfield early on, at least making it a split with Travis Etienne, which I think makes sense. Etienne is a guy who his yards per carry always trends down as the year goes on, because I think he's not built, like, just take a look at him. He's not built like a big-time bell cow back. He's not meant to carry that sort of workload. So I think he is someone who could actually benefit Travis Etienne in terms of Baishal Tootin being there. And the matchups the next 4 weeks, we got Cardinals this week, Titans week 13, Colts, and then the Jets in week 15. Those are some pretty good spots here. I think he is someone that really could be very interesting if he just continues to work more and more. Now, obviously, we got to monitor this injury, but they really ran those outside zone runs pretty well against the Chargers. That's a good way to attack that Chargers defense, but I think it's a replicable thing where that offensive line has just spent more time in the system. They've spent more time doing some of that. So I think that could be good news going forward for Baishal Tootin, who's definitely the most exciting player from these four to me. And they're all pretty interesting options. We did get one quick question from the YouTube chat. If you're watching along with us right now, they noted that they were surprised that they didn't see Sean Tucker on this list. If you just want to touch on that real quick, why no Sean Tucker among the four names here?
Yeah, because he had a great game against my Bills, and I'm just punishing him for that. No, it's because Bucky Irving was back at practice last week, right? Bucky Irving was back at practice. We're not sure how quick he's going to get back out there, but the fact that he was able to practice in a limited fashion last week at least gives us some hope that he might be back this week or he's going to be back very soon. If we knew that Bucky Irving was going to miss the rest of the season, Sean Tucker would be like an almost, empty the budget to try to get him type player. He would be leading this section. But with Bucky Irving actually showing up and practicing in a limited fashion last week, I think he's ramping up, and that's the way the team's talking about it. Once Bucky's back, then Tucker goes right back to being on the bench, right? So not that excited about him once Bucky returns to the lineup. You need injuries to open up the path for him, and it was happening, but now Bucky's coming back soon.
I still think we're at that point of the year where you want to grab these stash guys, right? And like, who's more likely to change your season if they hit, Devin Singletary or Sean Tucker? I think the answer is definitely Sean Tucker. Now, if you need like a spot start, sure, I guess Devin Singletary probably projects a little better. But even if Bucky Irving's back this week, like, is he going to go right back to his full workload, or are they going to mix in more Sean Tucker? Because I think we can all say, and I mean, even the coaches have said it at times, like, Sean Tucker's a good runner. They might trust Rachaad White in certain instances, but if they're looking for a second pitch alongside Bucky Irving for a run game that hasn't been good, I could could see Sean Tucker still remain involved, even though, yes, over the long term, this is obviously Bucky Irving's backfield.
Do you remember, I don't think it was last year. Was it 2 years ago, that game where Sean Tucker went off for like 200 yards and then
no, that was last
just
year.
Went right back to being nothing? Was it last year?
That was last year, yeah.
Yeah, so
it was against the Saints where they like completely forgot how to tackle.
Yeah, he has like this incredible game, and then, Bucky Irving comes back, and then we end up seeing him fall back. Because I think what it is more, I think Rachaad White would still be the complementary option behind Bucky Irving. Sean Tucker is more the Bucky Irving replacement. And I think we hit that one completely where it went, which was the longer Bucky was out, eventually Sean Tucker got his shot. He's a great player. Let's hope that he gets an opportunity as a starter somewhere. But we're going to need Bucky Irving to miss time, I think, for him to hit in fantasy. So stash away. If you look at my waiver wire column, I have it broken down into different sections of like, this guy's a flex play if starter is out. This guy's a risky flex play if he's healthy. Like, I have it all broken down in the column, so people can go check out that there. But don't worry, Sean Tucker is definitely in the column. We did not forget about Sean Tucker. It's just because Bucky looks like he's coming back soon. Let's keep moving here, though, Harmon. Let's get to receivers. And I have 4 guys that I want to go over. Alec Pierce, right up against that 50% rostered mark at 48% rostered, but we're still going to mention him coming off the bye. He's at KC. Christian Watson, who we mentioned earlier, going up against the Vikings. Michael Wilson versus the Jags, and then Darnell Mooney against the Saints. The opportunity is going to be there for Darnell Mooney. Can he actually deliver at some point this season on that opportunity? Alec Pierce, we don't need to spend very much time on at all. We've talked about him before. The guy is fantastic. His recent
maybe we do. People aren't picking him up.
I suppose, yeah. Like, I mean, in most competitive
I'm
leagues,
sure the people watching this show have picked him up. So,
yeah, but I mean, the last couple of games, 115 yards, 84 yards, and a touchdown. He is right up there producing in one of the best offenses in the league. So make sure that he is not available on the waiver wire. He would be the pickup if he's out there. Christian Watson, like a steady producer since he's returned from injury here. You look at his stat lines, 4 for 85, 2 for 58, 2 for 45. And then this week, the big one, 4 for 46 and the 2 touchdowns. And remember, in past years, he has shown like an affinity for finding the end zone. He can definitely do that. And they kind of need him to with some of these injuries in this offense. So you pick him up as like a wide receiver 3 flex play. You hope that he can get these consistent targets, even though he's a guy that doesn't necessarily need 10 targets to produce like we're seeing here. He can come through on much lower target totals with big plays, with touchdowns, that sort of thing. So definitely like him as a pickup. Michael Wilson, this might be like the Sean Tucker one of the wide receiver position because people are going to see the stat line and what he just did. And yet, when is Marvin Harrison Jr. coming back? Most guys that have appendectomies, it's only like a week or 2 that they miss. So I think there's a chance that we see Harrison back this week. If that happens, I think Michael Wilson just goes back to being the number 2 in this offense, which is technically the number 3 because you have Trey McBride and then Harrison, and then it would be him. And that was fine. Like, we saw him putting up decent totals in that role before this Harrison injury. But yeah, 15 catches, 185 yards on 18 targets. Like, we were high on him as like a wide receiver 3. I did not think that was even remotely within his range of outcomes. So good on him for having that career game. I don't think it's going to be anything like that unless Harrison misses the rest of the season at some point, which does not seem to be the way that's going. And then Darnell Mooney, I mean, he broke the collarbone in the preseason. He's dealt with injuries this year. Like I said earlier, like the targets have been there the last 2 weeks. 15 targets over the last 2 games, and he can't get above 35 yards in either of those games. I'm very concerned. I don't know that he has it this year. I don't know if it's the injuries or what. I don't know that he is going to be able to step up with Drake London potentially missing time here. So he's a guy you could pick up to see if he can, recapture that magic that he's had in past years. But I think he's just down in like the wide receiver 4 flex mix, maybe wide receiver 3 flex mix, but we need to see something from him soon before we can buy in.
Just on the Michael Wilson thing, I agree with you that for the most part, he's going to go back to the wide receiver 3 spot or the third target getter because you're going to have Trey McBride, you're going to have Marvin Harrison back. But the Cardinals, I just want to note, since Jacoby Brissett took over in week 6, they're 3rd in pass rate and they lead the NFL in passing yards per game. So there should be some opportunity, right, if somebody else can collect it. So in some good spots, obviously this matchup against the Niners was just the spot of all spots. He had the I think the 4th or 5th most receiving yards since 2002, or excuse me, since the year 2000 for a Cardinals wide receiver. There were 2 games of Anquan Bolden ahead of him, 1 game of John Brown, shout out to my guy, and Malcolm Floyd finished ahead of him in terms of receiving yards. So yeah, Michael Wilson, all-time game, not going to do that, but I think worth adding. I like all these pickups here, but come on, people, like Alec Pierce, if you're watching this show and Alec Pierce is available in your league, you've failed us. You have failed us. I know he's not. I know it's the other goofballs out there that are the 52% of teams who haven't picked him up, but let's get it going for those people out there. So I like this wide receiver section. Other than Darnell Mooney, I'm pretty suspicious about that one. But let's get to the tight end position here, Boone. We have some familiar names in this section.
Yeah, we're getting to know these guys very well. And certainly, they're at 40% rostered and above here, but still under that 50% rostered mark. So they're probably taking in a lot of leagues, but we got to mention them anyway. Juwan Johnson's going up against the Falcons, Colston Loveland versus the Steelers, Harold Fannin Jr. against the Raiders. And then the one that might actually be out there in your league is Brenton Strange at the Cardinals. And to quickly go over the other guys, Juwan Johnson is the one that like everyone should be going to get. I would even bid heavily to try to get him on your team. We saw the tight end 1 production early in the season. He had an injury. The numbers went down. And then recently right back up to top 12 production. So you go and get him, you put him in your lineup, and you feel very good about starting him. Now that Rashid Shaheed is out of the way, he's kind of the de facto number 2 receiver in that offense. So he is the guy that totally stands out to me. Colston Loveland and Harold Fannin Jr. kind of like similar players right now where they're playing with another veteran tight end in their offense. It's kind of limiting their upside, but the talent is there. The potential is there. They're just kind of in that like high-end tight end 2 streamer range. Brenton Strange is the one that's very interesting to me because you can get him right now. You can still put him in your IR spot until he comes off of that. We don't know when he's going to be back, but he returned to practice last week. And in that opening month before he got hurt, he had games with 59 yards. He had a game with 61 yards, had a game with 45 yards, didn't find the end zone, didn't score a touchdown, but with the kind of volume he was getting, touchdowns will certainly come. And the Jags receiver core right now is kind of up in the air, right? We've had so many injuries, new guy coming in and Jacoby Myers. So it'll be nice to see them get something from their tight end position. And Brenton Strange, whether it was last year or early this season, has shown that he can be a producer that can at least get into the low end tight end 1, a high end tight end 2 kind of conversation. Could be a bye week replacement, an injury replacement kind of play.
No question. I think Strange was one of their better pass catchers when he was out there, and was good in the blocking game too, so he could be on the field quite a bit. I'm excited to see him back in this offense. Lastly, give us a deep sleeper for the road.
This guy's going on bye. I don't know if it's like some of the deep sleepers we've mentioned before, because I've gone like way off the radar for some of these, but don't forget about Chris Rodriguez Jr. Just 12% rostered right now. He's risen to the top of that Commanders backfield depth chart, right? We've seen him getting a lot more work recently, still in a 3-man committee. But if you look at his last 3 outings, 65 yards and a score versus the Seahawks, had a touchdown against the Lions. And then this week, 85 yards on 16 touches in that loss to the Dolphins. It's not week winning production. He's not a guy that's going to come out of nowhere and lead you to a fantasy title. And yet he's somebody that can get into your lineup as a pretty solid RB3 flex option, especially in some of the easier matchups that they have coming up. Washington gets the Giants, the Eagles, and the Cowboys in the fantasy playoffs. Those are all plus opponents for fantasy running backs this season. So don't forget about him. We've all been focused on Bill Krosky-Merritt, and maybe coming back from the bye, we'll see a rookie bump for JCM. But right now, I think Chris Rodriguez is somebody you could get in leagues who might actually be the starter for them the rest of the way.